Awesome. Well, welcome again to the Lynchburg Valley Church. We're so excited for everyone to be here. Some really cool news. So today is collecting special missions contribution, and like Jason shared, part of our special missions, 10% of our final goal is going to our sister churches in India. Well, after the World Discipleship Summit, which is August 31st to the 7th, there are some church leaders from our Indian churches that are going to be in the States. And they're going to be making trips to all the churches that have helped them financially. So after the World Discipleship Summit, we'll have some of the church leaders from India here in Lynchburg. So please be praying, one, so that they can put eyes on people and just thank them. Yeah. The amount of money that we give, it's not, in our terms, substantial, but it goes a very long ways in India. Mm-hmm. So hopefully they'll be here after the World Discipleship Summit in early August. Again, thanks so much, Jason and Gabby, for welcoming us and talking to us about our special missions contribution. So we have been studying out the book of John. So you can go ahead and turn over to John 8. Last night, while you're turning there, trying to get the kids to bed. I don't know if you guys heard them, but there are a lot of fireworks.
Yes. I mean, sorry. I didn't mean that. Okay.
Your excitement was us not sleeping. Shooting off the fireworks and kind of celebrating this concept of freedom, right? The freedom that we have. And today we're going to be talking about freedom, right? And today the whole theme is the truth will set you free. Come on. Kind of give you an update of where we've been in the book of John. And in John 8, we've seen a lot happen. We've seen the woman brought to Jesus, and they're wanting to stone her because she was caught in adultery. And even last week, Jesus was talking to this crowd and said something profound, that he was the light of the world. This would be the second I am statement in the book of John, the first being that I am the bread of life. And you can go back, and this is a shameless plug for our YouTube channel. Every sermon that we preach, it goes up on our YouTube so that you can go back if you've missed something, or if you're out of town, or if you're not feeling well and you're not able to make it to church and you're not able to get on Zoom. There's always an option to go and hear the Word of God preached. Shameless plug, go subscribe, go hit that, smash that like button. Isn't that what the kids say?
Please stop.
No? Okay. Keep going, Cody. In John 8, we're going to pick up in John 8:31, but this is probably one of my favorite one-liners in the Bible. What Jesus says here, it just hits really hard. John 8, starting in verse 31. The Bible reads, "To the Jews who had believed him, Jesus said, 'If you hold to my teachings, you are really my disciples. Then you will know the truth, and the truth will set you free.' They answered him, 'We are Abraham's descendants and have never been a slave of anyone. How can you say that we shall be set free?' Jesus replied, 'Very truly I tell you, everyone who sins is a slave to sin. Now a slave has no permanent place in the family, but a son belongs to it forever. So if the Son sets you free, you are free indeed. I know that you are Abraham's descendants, and you are looking for a way to kill me, because you have no room for my word. I am telling you what I have seen in my Father's presence, and you are doing what you have heard from your Father." We'll stop there. We'll finish the rest of that passage next week. But today, I want to talk about the concept of the truth will set you free.
So Cody.
We see that Jesus speaks the truth. From when he's in the temple courts, he's speaking to the Jews during the Festival of Tabernacles. That's what we just kind of came out of. And he's speaking the truth. I am the bread of life. You need to eat my body and drink my blood. Which is profound. To tell a Jew that you need to drink someone's blood, which is the life of the creature, that is profound. To say that you are the light of the world, remembering what God had done for your ancestors in the Old Testament with the pillar of fire, directing his people in the desert, that is profound. That is truth. Jesus is dropping some nuggets for these Jews, and he's telling them, I know you believe, right? And if you look right above this in verse 30, it says that some of the Jews were starting to believe. That's amazing. To hear that a Jew is starting to believe that Jesus is who he says he is. That's a big deal. But Jesus doesn't congratulate them. He's like, you know what, guys, I'm so proud of you. Thank you for believing in me. I am amazed that you have come to belief. No. He ups the ante. Because it's all good and well to believe. It's amazing to believe. It's important to believe. Belief is necessary. To have faith, without faith, it's impossible to please God. Belief is needed. But Jesus ups the ante. He says to the Jews who had believed, they have belief. If you hold to my teachings, then you are truly my disciple. Or that you are really my disciple. This is a big deal. He's saying that belief is important, but it's not the end-all, be-all. You need to hold to my teachings. Mm-hmm. This concept of hold is to abide or to keep with or to walk in line with my teachings. It's not good enough just to acknowledge that it is truth. Jesus is saying that you need to walk in the truth. Hold to my teachings. Live out my teachings. Jesus is saying something profound, and the Jews aren't really with it. Right? What is their response when he says, you need to hold to my teachings? Well, I hear also what you're saying, Jesus, that if we hold to the truth will set us free. But we've never been a slave to anyone. Which is a very interesting line. Because if you look at the Jews' history, I don't think they might know the truth, but they don't really know their truth. Let's look back. Weren't you a slave in Egypt? Weren't you a slave to the Persians? Weren't you in exile in Babylon? Aren't you currently being oppressed by the Romans? Set you free. It feels like you've never actually been free. You've been a slave to so many people. Jesus is telling the truth will set you free. And they're trying to claim dependence on Abraham. We are descendants of Abraham. We have never been a slave to anyone. Says who? Read a history book. You've been a slave to almost everyone. But obviously Jesus isn't talking about physical enslaved by other people. He's talking very specifically, they've been slaves to sin. They've been slaves to the sin that their ancestors also were slaves to sin. The pride the self-righteousness, thinking of yourself better than others. We see this played out through the entire New Testament. Look at the letters that Paul writes. He's talking very clearly, like, you Jews, you don't even get along with the Gentiles. You're not even okay by accepting the Gentiles into the kingdom. A Jew isn't even supposed to go into a Gentile's house. You've been a slave to sin. You need to be set free. You need to be unshackled from sin. Jesus says that the truth will set you free. He also says that if you are really my disciple, right? This is a term we see here of disciple, where it is just a student of Jesus, or a pupil of the teacher who is Jesus, right? We see this word disciple here. If you really want to be a disciple, you need to hold to my teachings. I think, especially in Lynchburg, it is very easy to disconnect disciple and Christian. It's very easy to think, okay, I'm going to be a Christian. I'm going to be someone who loves God, believes in God, but I'm not going to be a disciple. Those guys are intense. Those guys hold to the teachings. Those, or women, not just guys. Those people are serious about their faith. They're avid. They speak the word. They speak the truth. I just want to kind of be a Christian. But we can't separate the two. If you look in Acts 11:26, it says the first time the word Christian was ever used. Right? The disciples were called Christians first at Antioch. They just got a name change. What they were doing didn't change. How they lived didn't change. A disciple and a Christian are synonymous. They're the same. They're one and the same. A disciple of Christ is a student of Christ who lives out his teachings. A Christian, the whole term Christian, is an imitator of Christ. Someone who wants to be like Christ and lives like Christ. So if we really want to be Christians, we need to hold to the teachings. We need to, one, know the teachings. I think that's one of the most important parts. It's so easy to take a clip of what Jesus says, but not the whole thing. Right? It's kind of like trail mix. Right? Not everyone likes all of trail mix. Like, I like the M&Ms. Those are the ones I pick out. Or the pretzels. I'm a pretty big pretzel guy. M&M pretzel, salt and sweet. But those little cardboard, like, you know what I'm talking about? That are in the trail mix that are just like not good. Maybe some of you guys like those. I do not. But I'll pick out what I want. It's so easy to do the same thing with the Gospels when you don't know the teaching. When you don't avidly read the teaching or live out the teaching. Jesus is talking to the Jews here and saying, hold to them. Don't just know them. Don't just believe them, but live it out. If you want to be my disciple. If you really want to be my disciple, that's what you will do. And what will that gain you? If you hold to the teachings, what will that do for you? Well, you'll know the truth. And that truth will set you free. The truth is Jesus. Right? If we are shackled to our sin, the only truth that can set us free from that is Jesus himself. The truth will set you free. That the only possible truth that will set you free is the life, the death, the burial, and the resurrection of Jesus. That's the only truth that's going to set you free. That's the only way to salvation, is through Jesus. The only way to the Father is through Jesus. Again, the Jews believed it. The Jews believed that Jesus was the man he said he was. That he was the Son of Man. Right before this, we preached last week that the Son of Man was going to be lifted up. They knew the Son of Man was going to be lifted up. They didn't necessarily know how he was going to be lifted up. But only Jesus can set us free. The Jews were blinded. They did not see, or they did not want to see, their sin. It's so easy to be blinded by sin. It's so easy to be withdrawn because of our sin. Whether we're embarrassed by it, whether we're insecure that people are going to judge me because of it. It's so easy to allow sin to separate us from God. God brings us Jesus, who is completely vulnerable, completely open with his life, how he lives, what he does, even to the point of his death. Vulnerable, whipped, crucified, cast lots for all of his things. He was completely vulnerable. He set our example of how we should be towards sin. Open and vulnerable. Fortunately, sin, why we need to be set free from it, is because it's killing us. The wages of sin is death. That's what we deserve. That's what I deserve. Because of my sin, I deserve death. I deserve that. I think, church, if we want to be set free from our sin, we have to normalize talking about it. We have to normalize being okay with being open and honest. What's going on? For myself, when I was in college, I went to Old Dominion University and I studied civil engineering. But I was so terrified that people will figure out who I actually am. I was so terrified that if people saw me for who I truly was, no one would like me. No one would care about me. No one would even venture to ask questions to understand why I did those things. And it crippled all of my relationships. When I was a sophomore in college, I wasn't a disciple, I wasn't a Christian. I was completely addicted to pornography and masturbation. I would plan my schedule. When my roommate left, I would have certain times that I knew his schedule better than he did, because I was so focused on how can I give to myself. I was crippled by it. I couldn't talk about it because it was cliche. I didn't have anyone in my life that was actually genuinely interested in what I was going through. So I just suffered in silence. I suffered for 2 years in college before someone actually opened the Bible with me. Before someone actually said, hey, you're not alone in this. This isn't something that you have to tackle by yourself. One, you can be set free from this. You can have someone in your life, you can have God, the Son of Man. Learn what he did for you. Learn all that he has done for you so that he can set the example and so that you can say no to ungodliness. That you can say, I'm done because of what he did. He can set us free. Church, I think we need to normalize talking about sin. It's uncomfortable. It's embarrassing. No one actually likes it. But we need each other. We need each other so that we don't suffer in silence. So that we have someone there that can pull us higher when we're down. My question is, what sin is in your life? Is it, like myself, was it sexual immorality? Is it pornography? Is it masturbation? Is it anything that is impurity? Lust? Maybe you have more refined character over the years that you've been a Christian. And you've kind of kicked those things to the curb, praise God. But now it's more just pride. Just thinking of yourself more than others. Maybe it's pride in the sense of you know better. And anyone with a differing opinion than you is already absolutely wrong. There's no second guessing your opinion. There's no being more critical of yourself rather than critical of others. Maybe it's just straight out pride. Maybe it's selfishness. Only giving to yourself. Or one that we don't necessarily talk a lot about is sin. It's just faithlessness. Just knowing who God is and the power he has, but yet still thinking that he's not going to work. We've been here for about 2 years now in Lynchburg. It's easy to slip into a mindset of if God was working, he would have already done it. If God was working, then this room would be packed by now. He's not working here. It's so easy to slip into a faithless mindset of that if God was going to work, he would have already did it. But that is sin. Faithlessness is sin. And only through Jesus can you be set free. What action or mindset are you a slave to? Maybe it is a faithless mindset. Maybe it is a physical action that you are a slave to. But praise God that Jesus does set us free. That Jesus is the truth. That he gives us a second chance. That he allows us to have mercy and grace. In Titus 2:11 and 12, it says, "For the grace of God has appeared that offers salvation to all people. It teaches us to say no to ungodliness and worldly passions, and to live a self-controlled, upright, and godly life in the present age." The truth sets us free. But also, it shows us how to stay free. How easy is when we were studying the Bible for the first time, we cut everything out. All sin, gone. Never going to do it again. And then it sneaks back in. Jesus doesn't just set us free from sin, but he gives us the life example and the grace that keeps us to saying no to sin. Church, as we even get ready to take communion together, I want us not to dwell necessarily on the sin that's in your life, but I want us to think about the grace that is given. The grace that we didn't deserve. The mercy that we did not earn. But the grace that God was willing to give to set us free from that sin. And through that grace, through that mercy, how is it teaching you to say no? How are you going to hold on to Jesus' teachings to say no to ungodliness? How are you going to be proactive and not reactive when temptation comes? What's the game plan this week? Because Satan's on the prowl like a roaring lion, and lions are hungry each day, right? They need to eat. So each day be prepared. What is Satan going to tempt you with? What is Satan going to try to drag you down to this week? I think we need to allow the grace of God to captivate us, to compel us, right? 2 Corinthians 5, to compel us to say no to ungodliness. Hi, my name is Cody Dottie with the Lynchburg Valley Church, and we're so grateful that you took time to watch our video. I pray that it has brought you joy and brought you peace, and it has encouraged you to continue to live this life to the full with Christ.